Hi, I'm Ed MacDonald from the Department of History at UPEI.
Ed, we're here talking about your new book, Cradling Confederation, which is being launched at the book launch on Friday. Can you tell me a little bit about the book?
Sure. Well, Confed Center of the Arts was established in 1964, and it's been a fixture on PEI since then. It's a shrine to Confederation, a living kind of thing, because it is the center of the arts. And about 9 years ago, I was asked to do a study on how it came to be, especially how the founders of the center were able to convince the provinces in Ottawa to pay for the costs of the Center of Arts on Prince Edward Island.
I've often wondered that. How do you convince someone in British Columbia, like how that it's worth their money to pay for something across the country?
Well, it's an amazing story, and that's why it ends up being a book, not just a report done for the center. Because they wanted to connect to their mandate as a shrine, a national shrine, and they wanted to connect to the vision that led to the creation of the center. It takes, leverage, salesmanship, it takes a vision, and it takes the conjunction of national mood. And all of that came into a vision and a focus that over the course of about 2.5 years went from a concept to a campaign to a reality. And when the center was actually built, although that's a different story, it was built very rapidly. The funding fell in place at the 11th hour, and the center opened on time and more or less on budget. And it cost 5.6 million, bucks, which in 1964 was a lot of money, and a lot of money to be spent by the provinces on PEI.
Were we feeling fairly patriotic as a country at this time? Is that why they were able to make the case at that point?
Well, the landscapes for construction consisted of, in part, a national mood. 1967 was coming up, celebrating 100 years as a nation. Canada was trying to create a Canadian identity for itself. The government was actively trying to create an identity, and there was a retrospective mood and a sense that we needed to look at our roots. So the Charlottetown Conference of 1864 is generally seen as the first step on the rocky road to Confederation, and Islanders had been trumpeting that since about 1914 until the rest of the country came to believe that we really were the cradle of Confederation. And thus that was an important landscape that the country, Ottawa, was looking towards some kind of a celebration, and it was looking for ideas for how to do this. And at the same time as that was happening, the creators of this idea, the concept, were lobbying for the construction of a center, an art center, which would include a gallery and some kind of a festival, like a theater, and a library. At the same time as they're trying to push that, Ottawa is receptive. So in a nutshell, Ottawa agrees that they will pay 1/2 of the cost of construction, but the provinces will have to pay the rest. And so the courtship began of the rest of the provinces to give on the basis of the size of the province and the population towards this. So someplace like Ontario, for example, contributed just under $1 million to the construction of the center. An extraordinary amount of money.
So tell me about the sales pitch. What did they? I mean, you said the 3 components of what they believed would be in there, but what were they telling them? What will be in those spaces?
Well, the other landscapes. There's a social landscape, there's a political landscape. This is also the period of equalization grants, where the have provinces give to the have not provinces. It's also a period when Canada's concerned about the lack of arts in the country and the need to promote the arts. And so those combine to help convince the premiers of the provinces. But Frank McKinnon, who was the visionary on Prince Edward Island, He may not have originated the concept of the center, but certainly he's the one that gave it a breath. And there was a Harvey from Alberta who was an oil man, a Calgary oil man, who had all the connections in the western half of the country and in Ontario to set up the meetings to say, hey, listen to Frank McKinnon. I'm Eric Harvey, and we're buddies. Listen to my friend Frank. He's going to give you a pitch about a national shrine to Confederation. We don't have one in Canada, and it should be here on the island because this is where it all started. And once one province was willing to contribute, then you could go to the other provinces and say, hey, Quebec is in.
Right.
Are you going to be a part of this? Are you going to be a nation builder in the same way that they were in 1864? And that kind of pitch, a living shrine, not a static kind of a memorial. Ottawa's already agreed to give, half. Of course, Ottawa, I think, never thought the rest of the provinces would contribute, and it probably didn't think it was going to have to ante up the funds. But the convincing found a receptive ear and a message that was appropriate to the times, and personal relationships. This was a period where you could get a contact in the Premier's office to set up a meeting with the Premier and come in and give your idea space and time. And then the Premier would turn around and go, well, if everybody else is in, we're in. Or maybe. But even a maybe is something you can build on.
Right.
But it was a tough sell in some parts of the country. And some of the money came in place at the 11th hour when the architects were looking for their fees and construction had to start. And so it makes for a dramatic story. It's odd that a story about fundraising could be such a dramatic story, and yet it is a dramatic story, and it makes a nice little book.
Okay. Ed, thanks very much.